You're tired, not just physically, not just mentally. You're tired in a way that rest doesn't fix. Because you're fighting something you can't name. You wake up already bracing for the day, for the expectations, for the pressure, for the noise. There's a quiet panic in your chest and a constant whisper in your mind. Keep pushing. Keep performing. Don't fall behind. So you force it. You force the smile. You force the motivation. You force the plans, the routines, the productivity. You don't even notice you're at war with life itself, always trying to make it bend to your will. But here's the truth no one tells you. The more you force life, the more it resists you. Because life isn't a machine. It's not here to be dominated or manipulated. It's not impressed by your perfectionism, your planning, or your panic. And deep down, you already know this. That's why you feel so restless, so anxious, so disconnected. You were taught that discipline is power, that pushing harder is the answer. But you were never taught the power of letting go, of trusting life, of allowing it to unfold, even when it doesn't match your expectations. This isn't about giving up. It's about stopping the self-inflicted war. It's about choosing to no longer live in resistance, because something incredible happens when you stop forcing life. It begins to move, and it begins to carry you. Stay with me. This may be the most important truth you've been avoiding. Most of your life, you've been taught that control equals safety. That if you plan enough, prepare enough, push enough, you can protect yourself from chaos, pain, and disappointment. So you became a master of control. You learned how to anticipate everything. You created backup plans for your backup plans. You tried to manage not only your actions, but other people's reactions, their feelings, even their choices. You believed that if you kept everything in place, nothing would fall apart. But slowly, you did. Because the pursuit of control comes with a cost no one talks about. It disconnects you from presence. It steals your ability to enjoy the moment. It turns life into a checklist, not a lived experience. And the more you try to control, the more out of control you actually feel. That's the paradox. Because control is rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, fear of being hurt again, fear of being seen without a mask. But here's the truth. Life doesn't respond well to force. It resists it. It pushes back. Like holding sand in a closed fist, the tighter you grip it, the faster it slips through your fingers. You're not broken. You're just tired from trying to hold what was never meant to be held that way. You don't need to grip life. You need to open your hand. What if everything you've been trying to force was actually waiting for you to surrender? Your mind might lie to you. It might say, "You're fine. Just push through. Don't stop now." But your body never lies. And if you've been living in a state of constant force, your body knows. It knows every time you tense your shoulders without realizing. It knows every time you clench your jaw through another conversation that drains you. It knows every night you can't sleep even though you're exhausted. It knows the fatigue that rest doesn't fix. You call it stress. You call it anxiety. You call it burnout. But what if it's resistance? What if your body isn't malfunctioning? What if it's communicating? Screaming even. Please stop. Please breathe. Please trust. Please stop forcing what doesn't want to happen. But we don't listen. We treat the symptoms instead. More coffee, more productivity hacks, more noise, anything to stay distracted from the truth. Your nervous system wasn't designed to live in survival mode 24/7. It needs rhythm. It needs softness. It needs safety. And safety doesn't come from control. It comes from connection to your body, your breath, and your inner truth. Sometimes your exhaustion isn't a flaw in your system. It's a message, a quiet, sacred invitation to stop pushing and start feeling. Because when you stop forcing life, you give your body the permission it's been begging for. To rest, to heal, to simply exist without needing to earn it. Behind all your effort, all your planning, all your pushing, there's something softer, something more vulnerable, something you've been trying to outrun. Fear. Not the loud kind, not the kind that screams in the middle of the night, but the quiet kind. The fear that whispers, if I stop trying, I'll fall behind. If I rest, they'll forget me. If I let go, I'll lose everything. If I'm not in control, I won't be safe. So you work harder, you move faster, you double down on discipline and call it strength. But it's not strength, it's fear in disguise. You've mistaken effort for worth, control for protection, busyness for value, and now even your peace feels unsafe because you don't know who you are without the tension. But let's be honest, you weren't born this way. You learned to live this way. Somewhere in your past, being still meant being unprepared. Letting go meant getting hurt. Depending on others meant disappointment. So you made a vow. I'll take care of everything. I'll never be caught off guard again. But that vow became your prison. Because life isn't meant to be managed. It's meant to be experienced. And not everything that feels uncertain is dangerous. Not everything that's quiet is a threat. Sometimes it's an invitation. And maybe the freedom you're chasing isn't on the other side of more effort. Maybe it's on the other side of trust. When you're always forcing, life becomes a race. Not a journey, not an experience. Just a relentless chase towards something that always feels out of reach. You're here, but not really. Your body is in the present, but your mind is in 100 different futures. What if this goes wrong? What if they leave? What if I fail? What if I miss my chance? You try to stay ahead of life by imagining every possible outcome. But in doing that, you miss the only place where life is actually happening, right now. And maybe that's why everything feels so numb, so rushed, so disconnected. You don't even allow joy to land before you're already preparing for what comes next. You don't celebrate your progress because you're already chasing the next goal. You're not living life. You're managing it. But the truth is, you can't force the future and feel the present at the same time. One always cancels the other. Presence requires trust. Trust that this moment is enough, that you are enough, even when you're not fixing, achieving, or proving anything. And when you stop fighting the now, you start hearing things you couldn't hear before. Your intuition, your body's rhythm, the subtle signals life has been sending you all along. Because life doesn't scream, it whispers. But you can only hear it when you stop forcing. There's a moment, quiet and strange, when you finally stop forcing, when you unclench your fists, when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, when you breathe fully for the first time in what feels like years. At first, it feels like weakness, like giving up, because your mind is still wired to believe that effort equals worth, that surrender equals failure. But slowly, something shifts. You notice that life doesn't collapse without your constant grip. In fact, it starts to respond to you differently, not because you're pushing harder, but because you're finally in tune. Decisions become clearer, relationships soften, opportunities appear without you chasing them. You begin to attract instead of pursue, to respond instead of react. Because now, you're no longer trying to dominate life, you're dancing with it. And in that dance, you begin to feel something you forgot you had. Trust. Not blind optimism, not passive waiting, but the deep, grounded trust that life knows what it's doing. You stop seeing delays as punishments. You stop needing constant control to feel safe. You stop defining your worth by how much you're doing. And instead of asking, "What do I need to force today?" you start asking, "What wants to move through me?" This is where everything begins to change. Not from effort, but from alignment. Let's make something clear. Letting go is not the same as giving up. We've been taught to equate surrender with passivity. To think that if we stop pushing, we'll fall behind. That if we stop controlling, we'll lose everything. That if we're not in charge, life will forget us. But surrender isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's not saying, "I don't care." It's saying, "I trust that I don't need to force what's meant for me." It takes far more strength to release than to grip, to soften instead of harden, to pause instead of panic, to sit with uncertainty instead of trying to escape it. Control is reactive. It's fueled by fear. It screams, "I have to fix this now." But surrender is responsive. It listens. It waits. It trusts the timing, even when your ego hates the delay. There is immense power in choosing not to force, because in that space of trust, something ancient inside you awakens, a quieter strength, a deeper knowing. You begin to realize that you don't need to chase peace. It was always available beneath the noise. You don't need to force love. It flows when you stop performing. You don't need to beg for clarity. It arises when you get still enough to receive it. Surrender is not the end of action. It's the beginning of aligned action, the kind that moves with life, not against it. And once you taste this kind of living, you'll never want to go back to forcing again. When you stop forcing, something strange happens. Life starts meeting you halfway. Not because you finally cracked the code, not because you said the perfect affirmation, but because you stopped pushing it all away. You notice a conversation you didn't plan for turns into the opportunity you'd been chasing. You take a walk without expectation and return with clarity you couldn't force by thinking. You finally say no to what drains you and watch space open for what truly nourishes you. It feels like coincidence, but it's not. It's alignment. Because when you stop living from fear, you begin to live from truth. And the moment you do, everything shifts. Not instantly, not perfectly, but steadily. Life becomes less about trying to control outcomes and more about staying open to what wants to happen through you. Your days feel lighter, even if they're still full. Your decisions feel clearer, even if they're still hard. Your heart feels safer, even if nothing outside has changed. You realize You were never failing. You were just forcing. And now, you're remembering something deeper, something ancient, something soft but unshakable. You are allowed to live without fighting everything. And in that allowance, you begin to see beauty where there used to be pressure. You begin to see life, finally, moving with you, not against you. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." This simple phrase holds a powerful key to understanding your struggle. When you force life, you're resisting the natural flow, resisting uncertainty, pain, and the parts of yourself you find uncomfortable. You push away what feels messy or unknown, hoping to keep control. But Jung teaches us that resisting these parts doesn't make them disappear. Instead, they grow louder, more persistent, like shadows waiting to be seen. True healing begins when you stop fighting what's inside and around you. When you start to integrate your fears, your doubts, and your imperfections instead of running from them. It's like the tide. Trying to hold back the waves only exhausts you. But learning to surf means embracing their movement, even when it's unpredictable. By surrendering to life's natural rhythm, you bring yourself into balance. You stop creating internal conflict and find peace in your contradictions. This is the path Jung showed us, the path of acceptance and wholeness, not perfection, not constant control, but the courage to face your shadows with compassion. Because when you stop forcing life, you stop forcing yourself. And that's where true freedom begins. So here's the truth you've been searching for, quietly waiting beneath the struggle. When you stop forcing life, everything truly changes. It doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means you stop fighting against the flow and start moving with it. You begin to trust yourself more, to listen to your body, to honor your feelings, to welcome uncertainty as part of growth. This shift isn't always easy. It asks for courage, patience, and a willingness to be gentle with yourself. But it is also the doorway to peace, to freedom, to a life that feels alive, not just controlled. If this message speaks to you, if it lights a quiet fire inside, know that you're not alone. You can start right now by taking one small breath, one small pause, one small act of letting go. And if you want to explore this journey deeper, subscribe and join this slow, compassionate conversation. Because healing isn't a race, it's a rhythm, and together we can find it. Thank you for being here, for listening, for choosing to stop forcing and start living.